President Clinton just released his prepared remarks that he is delivering behind closed doors.
There are two things that he is going to emphasize. One, he is going to deny any wrongdoing on his part. And second, he will deny that he knew anything about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. He also previewed in his opening remarks that he was often going to answer questions with the words, "I don't recall."
That's right. Former President Bill Clinton, he sat down before the House Oversight Committee today as part of the committee's probe into Jeffrey Epstein. And as you just heard, he is prepared to deny that he saw anything or did anything illegal whenever it came to his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Cenk, I have so much to cover with this story. We did cover Hillary's deposition yesterday on the show, but what are your thoughts about Bill's deposition heading into this?
I thought there was a couple words that he used that I thought were lawyerly, and it made me go, and then how close was he with Epstein? When did he know? Those are the really important details. So I'll let you present the facts, and then I'll come back and focus on those issues.
Okay, yeah, so just to start off, I just want to clarify that neither Bill nor Hillary Clinton have been accused of any wrongdoing, and no Epstein victim nor any other associate has ever come forward and made any public allegations of any kind of wrongdoing or inappropriate behavior by either Bill or Hillary. But Bill Clinton, he did have a long-standing relationship and friendship with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. We know that, there's pictures, it's proven in the files. And also, the latest files include frequent communications between Maxwell and Clinton staffers between 2001 and 2004. It was during this period that Bill Clinton traveled with his staffers on Epstein's private plane 16 times, according to a CNN analysis. Also, there are at least 11 images of Bill Clinton socializing with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and other photos other photos that show Clinton with his arm around what appear to be young women whose faces have been hidden. So there is that. Today's deposition is happening behind closed doors, and according to sources who are familiar with the matter, video will be released of this within a matter of days, so we have that to look forward to. However, he did post some things on X in his opening statement. He had this to say. He said, "I'm here today for two reasons. The first is that I love my country, and America was built upon the idea that no person is above the law, even presidents, especially presidents. The second reason I'm here is that the girls and women whose lives Jeffrey Epstein destroyed deserve not only justice, but healing. They've been waiting too long for both." He goes on to say, "I had no idea of the crimes Epstein was committing. No matter how many photos you show me, I have two things at the end of the day that matter more than your interpretation of those 20-year-old photos. I know what I saw, and more importantly, I know what I didn't see. I know what I did, and more importantly, what I didn't do." And then he goes on, he says, "I didn't see anything that gave me pause. By the time it all came to light with his 2008 guilty plea, I had long stopped associating with Jeffrey Epstein." And then he made it very clear that he was not happy lawmakers were questioning his wife the day before. He said, "I have to get personal. You made Hillary come in. She had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein, nothing. She has no memory of even meeting him. She neither traveled with him nor visited any of his properties. Whether you subpoenaed 10 people or 10,000, including her, was simply not right." And he did end with a warning, which you did hear earlier in that clip that we showed. Getting information out of him is not gonna be easy. He wrote that "you'll often hear me say that I don't recall. That might be unsatisfying, but I'm not gonna say something I'm not sure of. This was all a long time ago, and I am bound by my oath not to speculate or to guess. This is not merely for my benefit, but because it doesn't help you for me to play detective 24 years later." So surprisingly, he has been cooperating as much as he knows how to, and he has answered some very tough questions from both parties, according to Representative Robert Garcia. He said, "I think everybody would agree that he's been very cooperative, and he's actually answering the questions fairly to the best of his ability. He has not taken a pass on pleading the fifth for any questions. He's been very thorough. In fact, I don't think he's given any sense that he's uncomfortable to be there. In fact, I think he's been pretty interested in answering, I think, all of the questions of both the Republicans and the Democrats." Also, Representative Melanie Stansbury stated in regards to their questioning She said, you will see that we asked all of the hard questions, centering the survivors, making sure that we get to the bottom of where there are discrepancies in the record, and understanding how not only the crimes that Jeffrey Epstein committed could go on, but why there was a culture that surrounded him wherein the rich and powerful turned the blind eye on. So also, according to sources, there have been several questions surrounding Clinton's name appearing in Epstein's flight log, and Epstein's name appearing also in the White House visitor log. So that's a little, reverse Uno that we didn't know that we should be looking out for. So it's unknown the exact questions and answers that were given right now. But Republican Representative Anna Paulina Luna, she did give some insight into other things the panel is looking into with Clinton, including trying to learn if Epstein was part of an intelligence gathering operation that targeted presidents and those in power. She said it's important to note that Jeffrey Epstein does have all of the telltale signs of an intelligence gathering operation. I think we all know that. I do believe that because of the people in power and influence, specifically presidents, et cetera, that he was targeting, that there is an aspect of foreign governments, some of us against each other using this topic. All right, Cenk, that was a lot of information. We have a little bit more, but what are your thoughts on everything that has transpired so far? Do you think that Bill Clinton can be trusted to give as much as he knows to give, or do you think he might be still withholding some information?
Well, I think our members on TYT.com made terrific points about whether he could be trusted on this issue. So TYT stalwart Eclectic Miscellanea wrote in, I did nothing wrong, says the guy famous for saying, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Oops, excellent point. And then Nerd Ferguson wrote in, well, it's a done deal then. He doesn't seem like the type that would lie about a sexual relation. So, yes, you'll have to take what Bill Clinton says with an enormous grain of salt. Now, I don't know if I'm nitpicking here, but I wanna tell you two quotes that I saw that had my radar perk up. So he said at one point in his statement, though my brief acquaintance with Epstein ended years before his crimes came to light, and though I never witnessed during our limited interactions any indication of what was truly going on. Okay, now it might be nothing and it just might be a turn of phrase, right? But that word truly, as a lawyer and knowing Bill Clinton, who's also a lawyer and has, danced around these issues before, I thought, that's giving him some wiggle room. Don't forget, Noble Mobile saving you a ton of money. So a lot of people are signing up now and beginning to realize, what the hell, why am I paying so much to Verizon and AT&T? So your bill's only $50 a month, but it can actually be less because they give you money back if you don't use your data. So if you're paying more than $50, there's no reason to not switch. It's crazy not to switch because same phone, same number, same contacts, literally nothing changes. TYT.com/switch, TYT.com/switch. All right, we'll be right back. So that he could say later, I knew what was some of the things that were going on, but I didn't know what was truly going on. Now, I might be way overinterpreting, but that's this sense I got. Then I saw this quote about Hillary Clinton that Yaz read to you guys. She has no memory of even meeting him. She neither traveled with him nor visited any of his properties. And I thought, wait, if Hillary Clinton is sure she never met him, which is what she said, all of a sudden, Bill Clinton is saying she has no memory of even meeting him. Little wiggle room in case they find a picture, right? And then he says very specifically that she didn't go to his properties or travel with him. That's the type of lawyerly thing you would say if you met him somewhere else, okay? So you're putting in needless details there. I might be way overreading it, but that was my sense of like, those are Clinton-esque statements that make you wonder if there's something he's hiding within those lines. Okay, so that's, well, if anybody says overanalyzing, I grant it, okay? But the main point is, to me, not whether Bill Clinton did something with the girls. If he did, of course, that's terrible, it's criminal, and he should suffer every consequence for it, right? To me, what's interesting is that how powerful Epstein is and how Clinton and Epstein, both Clintons and Epstein, ran in similar circles, right? That doesn't mean they're guilty, but it does mean that there are people that run this place, right? So yesterday we were showing some video in the background when I noticed, oh wait, that's Bill Clinton as president, and guess who's standing right behind him? while he's giving a speech, Miriam Adelson. So Adelson was a Democrat when the Democrats were in charge. She's now a Republican when the Republicans are in charge. Just earlier in the show, I read you Larry Ellison being a Democrat when the Democrats were in charge, now a Republican when the Republicans are in charge. Epstein, very similar. And Epstein and Maxwell and all these guys running in the same exact power circles. And you have heard me say many times, Epstein could get meetings with the Vladimir Putin, for the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak. He could get meetings with the French president, the Norwegian Prime Minister, and the list goes on and on and on. So I care more, Yaz, about what were those powerful people up to that they don't want us to know about, even more important than the specific crimes that they committed. Like, because it gets to the point of why did they commit those crimes? What's their goal that none of them are telling us?
Yeah, and what's been so interesting about this whole saga from the moment that he was arrested and the world kind of learned so much about Jeffrey Epstein, and we started to understand how big his network was and how involved he was in so many of the things that are influencing not just our American system, politics, media, etc., but also he's doing all these things on a global level. I think the more we keep unraveling all these things, we're starting to understand more of what was the goal. Why were all these people doing these things? Who's running again, not just the country, but the planet? Who's running the world? And what, if anything, can be done about it going forward? At the very least, can we protect these innocent women and girls who have been victimized as a kind of, it seems like just a side note to everything else that's been going on. The girls and the women were just like a nice to have add-on to sweeten some deals whenever they're like really doing some big international geopolitical scheming, which is really sad. And I don't say that to be glib about it, but it's like that's how they were treating these women and these girls, and they would go on to have their lives transformed in a really negative, the most negative way after that as a result. But one good thing, Cenk, that is coming from all of this is, with all of the focus on Bill Clinton and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and also Hillary's, whatever that might be, today's deposition has also raised Democrats' desire to maybe call in another president for questioning, and that is the president who has been mentioned in the files over 1 million times, and that is none other than our current president, Donald Trump. And according to James Comer, Clinton stated, "Trump has never said anything to me to make me think he was involved with Epstein." But keep in mind, the full transcript has not been released yet, and Representative Robert Garcia made note of that when asked about Comer's note. Take a look.
Look, we're not going to disclose what was said because that's not in the rules. The Republicans keep breaking the rules. But I think to what Mr. Frost said earlier, there was, I think that the President Clinton, did bring up some additional information about some discussions with President Trump. I think that the way Chairman Comer described it, I don't think is a complete accurate description of what actually was said. So let's release the full transcript so you can get a full record of what actually was said, which brings up some very important new questions about comments that President Trump has actually said.
So according to 3 sources familiar with the testimony, Clinton told lawmakers that Trump and Epstein had a falling out, very sad, in the early 2000s over a land deal. Trump, of course, believes he has been fully exonerated. He keeps saying that, and he keeps saying that he doesn't know anything about the Epstein files. At least that is what he told the press just this morning. Keep in mind, though, a New York Times analysis found a total of 5,300 documents mentioning Trump, and the DOJ withheld at least 50 pages in its most recent file release that involved allegations directly against Trump. So, we clearly, as the American people, are not getting the full picture, and we keep hearing these stories about the things that were not released, the files that were not included, the things that had been redacted. For example, we know that there was a picture of Howard Lutnick with Jeffrey Epstein. It's unclear exactly where they were, but that was not included. That was redacted from the file release because it didn't fit the narrative that Howard Lutnick himself had told us that he didn't hang out with Epstein. He barely knew the guy. He met him once, hated it. and he hated the whole experience. Also with Hillary Clinton, it's a very interesting move for them to try and call her up to the stand, because I'm not really sure what they're hoping to get from it, especially considering she's not really in the files and she hasn't been accused of any wrongdoing or anything like that. But as some have pointed out, Ghislaine Maxwell was at Chelsea Clinton's wedding, not Jeffrey Epstein, but Ghislaine was there as a +1 to another guest. Also, it was mentioned that Jeffrey Epstein had been to the Clinton White House, 16, 17 times. And so it's unlikely, as Cenk, you were saying, it was very lawyerly talk. She never went on his plane. She never went to his island, but she might have met him elsewhere. Perhaps she did meet him in the Clinton White House during those 8 years there. All right, Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that might be a pretty relevant place to meet him. All right, guys, there's one giant thing that the press keeps ignoring too. So first, to the point that Yas made, look, we already see devastating stuff about Trump in what has already been released about the Epstein files. Some are not that credible, some are very credible, so there's a range, right? But there's 53 missing pages. How much worse are they than the already horrible stuff that they released, that they kept those hidden? And then between Clinton and Trump, could either one of them be with young girls? No way, said literally no one in the country. Like, of course, that's totally possible with both of them, right? Now, it doesn't mean they did it, but we're worried about it. Why are we worried about it? Not just because they'd be committing a terrible crime, but because we can't have our president open to blackmail, which leads me to the elephant in the room that, again, no one in the press talks about, at least in American press. If you look at Times of Israel, you'll find out that during a 1998 negotiations that Clinton was hosting between the Israelis and the Palestinians, Benjamin Netanyahu came to Clinton, pulled him aside, and told him, look, I want your help with this. I want your help in releasing Jonathan Pollard, the traitor who stole our secrets and gave them to Israel. Clinton's like, why? And Netanyahu said, we have the tapes of you talking to Monica Lewinsky. The tapes where they were talking about sex and their relationship. He said, oh, don't worry, we destroyed them, wink, right? But we know what was on them and we would hate for that to get out. That was before anyone knew about Monica Lewinsky. So the Israelis and Benjamin Netanyahu in particular already have a track record of blackmailing our presidents about sex. And now both those presidents are connected to Epstein. So the elephant in the room is, yes, someone, and we know who, the Israelis that Epstein is connected to nonstop in all the emails and all the files, are collecting evidence to use as blackmail against our presidents. That's the iceberg. Everything else is the tip of the iceberg. That's all.
Yeah, and it turns out to be one hell of an iceberg. And if that's just the tip of it, like, we don't even know how big this thing is. We don't know how far it's gonna go. We don't know how deep these networks run. We don't know how many people are involved. And it seems every day there are more and more people involved. And these files, like the revelations that we've already gotten from them, are so mind-blowing that, first of all, I think people are starting not to become numb to it, but it's just like, okay, like what else? Like it's so crazy, the things that are in these files. So many things that people thought were once maybe conspiratorial have been proven to be like, maybe that is what's happening here. But then also, it's created something where between the left and the right, we're all kind of watching these files, taking what we want out of them. There still seems to be a pretty right-left divide in the way that people are interpreting the contents of the files, and I won't get into all of that. But it is interesting to see that some people who really were with the MAGA movement because they were afraid of the kinds of people who are in this country, the kinds of people who are running this country, some of them have been like, no, I want to see all these people testify. There has been a contingency of people who have also been leaving the MAGA movement. And so they see what's there, they can see the way the country is going, and they say, you know what, I'm not that anymore. Maybe they're not Democrats, maybe they're not progressives, but they're, at least they're independents. And that, I think, is something that we can celebrate and we can look forward to hopefully happening more of as we continue to unravel more of these files.
Yep. So the bottom line on that is it's a good day when more and more Americans stop believing the politicians. They don't seem to be on our side. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.